The headlights found her before I did. I remember that sentence more clearly than the rest. How the two bright circles carved the night in half and revealed a shape standing perfectly still in the middle of the lane, like a bruise on the black. I was driving home from a shift I barely remember, the highway a ribbon of wet asphalt and the kind of silence that presses against the windows. The radio had fallen into static somewhere between towns. My phone showed one lonely bar, and the display clock blinked 2:13 a.m. like an accusation. At first, I told myself it was a hitchhiker. People stand on roads at night all the time. Tired students, fishermen who missed the last bus, someone with a flat tire holding a coat around their shoulders. That's how my mind kept it honest. Ordinary explanation, ordinary danger. But when I slowed, the shape took a step forward, and the way her hair fell across her face made the light swallow it whole. It wasn't wind. The night was mercilessly still. Her shirt, if that's what it was, hung loose and looked damp with something darker than road grime. The smell hit me like an old memory, iron and wet earth, the scent of something that had been buried and then dug up. I killed the engine, and the car felt suddenly huge and tiny at the same time, a hollow shell with my breath loud inside. The headlights threw her shadow long and thin onto the lane behind her, and for a moment I watched my own hands clench on the wheel. There's a small, stupid litany you tell yourself at times like that. Lock the doors, keep your hands visible, don't make sudden moves. I whispered each one like a prayer. She didn't move her head. When I craned my neck to see her face, the light showed hollows, dark circles that might have been makeup, might have been something else. Her eyes were the kind of empty that reads like a warning. I could feel the road under my shoes through the floor of the car, like a pulse. My throat filled with the metallic taste of adrenaline and something colder, like ice melting in oil. There was a sign back down the road I'd passed 20 minutes earlier, one of those reflective posts that blur into streaks at speed. In the side of my brain, a voice said, "Never travel alone." In front of me, there was a woman who should have been human and wasn't behaving the way a living person behaves. My foot hovered over the gas pedal, and then, against the small voice that wanted me to drive on, I did the stupid, human thing. I opened the door. I shouldn't have. I thought the night would stay simple. Me, the road, that impossible figure, but nothing about that stretch of asphalt wanted to be simple. I stepped out into air thick as wool. The cold wrapped around my neck, and the hair along my arms stood to attention. The headlights behind me carved the woman's silhouette into a thing of hard edges. Up close, the shirt clung to her like skin gone wrong, patterned with dark blotches that didn't quite read as blood or mud. Her hair was stringy, hanging in wet curtains, and when she finally tilted her head, there was the sensation of a dropped pin, waiting for sound that never came. She moved without the noise of feet. 1 second, she was in front of the hood. The next, she was beside my open door. I should have screamed. I don't know why I didn't. Maybe my voice had gotten left in the car, behind the steering wheel. Her face was close enough that the cold from her mouth fogged the air between us. Her lips parted, and she said something, or tried to. The words came out like something sucked through cotton. I leaned in because leaning feels like control, and control is a superstition we invent when we're scared. When I peered into her mouth, I thought of rabbit holes, pink and slick and utterly wrong. But her eyes, they were the worst. Not empty this time, but crowded, like tiny pinpricks reflecting not headlights but other lights, other faces. For a second I saw movement in them, a flicker of a car interior, my own steering wheel, the way the dashboard clock had blinked 2:13. I blinked, and the little scenes in her pupils rearranged. One showed me driving past this very spot, years ago, blithe and lighter in someone else's jacket. Another showed a pair of hands, my hands, reaching for a phone I knew I didn't have. I took a step back and felt the wet smear of something on my shoe. I looked down. There were prints on the asphalt leading up to my car, then around it, like a careful, indecipherable ritual. The prints were small at first, then stretched, then split into 3 sets, as if more people had walked in a staggered shuffle. Behind me, the beam of my headlights widened and picked out a row of reflective posts, and in one of them I saw briefly the suggestion of movement. Another figure, then another, standing along the roadside as if waiting for an appointment. I turned my head, and they were gone. She reached for my hand. The skin of her fingers was cool and grainy, like touching a stone that had been baking in rain. When our fingers met, I felt something else, like a current, but not electric. Memory. Not mine at first. I saw flashes, a child's laugh, a hand on a doorknob that never opened, the metallic taste of a mouthful of rainwater. Then the memory sharpened into one terrible certainty. I had not been alone on that road before. Someone had been in my car. The door to the passenger seat jarred with a soft, patient creak, and from inside the car came the sound of someone humming, my mother's lullaby, in a voice I hadn't heard in a decade. I spun toward the sound, and the woman stepped back, smiling a small, private smile, as if she'd been waiting for my confusion. She said my name. When she said my name, it folded the night in on itself. The lullaby kept humming from somewhere inside the car, my mother's voice, small and patient, stitched through the air like a seam being pulled tight. I heard it and remembered a house with a yellow kitchen light and a red bicycle on the porch, but the memory didn't belong to me cleanly. It arrived torn, worn at the edges, as if I'd borrowed it from someone else's life and tried to fit it over my own. My hands moved before my mind did. I slapped the door shut between us and felt the click like a verdict. The engine wouldn't turn. The dashboard lights glowed and died as if something had sucked the power out of the batteries and the world. Outside, the roadside came alive with soft thuds, footsteps without weight, encircling the car like a predator circling a tree. The reflective posts that marked the shoulder blinked in and out, and in each blink I saw a new face pressed against them, a blank catalog of loss. Men with mouths full of gravel, children with hair like wet rope, a pair of hands that ended in a smear. I tried the lock. It stuck. My phone, the one that had shown one lonely bar, vibrated wildly in my jacket pocket and then stilled, as if whatever signal it had held had been swallowed. The humming rose into a chorus and the notes split, layering on top of one another like voices on old tape. I recognized one voice, my own, caught and replayed, whispering the same dull instructions I'd told myself hours ago. Lock the doors, keep your hands visible, don't make sudden moves. The repetition felt like a lesson taught by something patient and cruel. The woman tapped the glass with her knuckle, a sound like a rock skimming water. Each tap made the hairs on my forearm raise. The next time she tapped, the glass fogged from the inside, and a word appeared in the condensation: stay. It wasn't drawn by a finger. The letters formed themselves, sliding into place as if the night had handwriting. I thought of driving. I thought of what I would say at a hospital, how to explain the marks on my shoes, the wetness on my sleeve, the smell under my nails. I put the key in the ignition, and the car exhaled one long, tired breath and refused to answer. The figures outside moved closer, not with legs, but with intent, and in their shadowed mouths, I saw my face again, older, softer, smiling like a photograph left too long in the sun. She opened the passenger door. The inside smelled like dirt and old perfume, and something sweet and rotten underneath. She slid into the seat as if she'd earned a place there. When the door closed, I saw, for one impossible second, that the passenger side mirror held the image of a different road. One I recognized only because I'd driven it the night after my father died, the one where I swore I saw a woman at the side and thought I had been imagining grief. The mirror showed me then and there, pressing my forehead against the glass. My reflection mouthed the word I had always tried to forget. "You left me," it said. There was no room left for panic. Panic is a tool that needs air and light. The humming folded down to a single thread, and the thread tugged at my teeth. I put both hands on the wheel and felt them, large, cold, and steady, grasp my wrists from beneath the dashboard. I didn't look down. I couldn't look down. I felt the car shift not forward, but inward, like a breath being taken from the world. As the headlights faded and the road unstitched itself into fog, I realized the honest, brutal thing. The woman had always been waiting for me to remember. The faces in the pupils were not mirrors. They were a ledger. The last thing I heard before the darkness closed was my own voice answering her, soft and small and resigned to a truth that had been there all along. "I'm sorry." Then the road took me.
Subscribe to Horror Story Bar.